right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by John Ray, who is in a lovely Atlanta, Georgia. How you doing, John?
I'm great, Don. Well, I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Thank you for doing it. John is a pricing and business development expert who empowers consultants, attorneys, coaches, fractional executives, and small firm leaders to shift from hourly billing to value based pricing. Over a decade experience advising professional services firms, plus a background in finance and M&A at JP Morgan. You focus on natural value conversations that build trust and drive growth. And you are the author of The Generosity Mindset and the upcoming Generosity Mindset workbook. And you host your own podcast, The Price and Value Journey, on North Fulton Business Radio. Fantastic. All right. So let's start talking about that concept of stop selling hours and how to sell outcomes. This is a real challenge, isn't it? I mean, especially for, like, I've done management consulting myself. Like, I in the past, like I know what that's like, and I know it's very easy to get dragged into hourly billing, right? And
Yep,
when you get dragged into hourly billing, what's the first thing that happens? People negotiate the hourly rate.
that's right. The,
Yeah.
the first thing they say is, "I don't make that much per hour. How can you make that much per hour?"
Exactly, exactly. So how can you just explain, like, if you do hourly billing, what does that do in terms of like commoditization and basically leaving money on the table?
Yeah, so certainly it creates a comparison you're not looking for, like you alluded to. Suddenly, you're compared by your rate to other
Mhm.
providers instead of what the important metric is, which is the outcome. What's
Yeah,
the value of the transformation? The problem with hourly pricing is it's an input.
yeah.
It's like asking uh, someone ask you what the price of the house is, and you tell them how much the bricks cost. I mean, that's 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 an interesting number, but it doesn't tell you what the final cost will be, and it doesn't get into what the value of the transformation is, and that's what people are buying ultimately. They're buying an outcome. So uh, focus on the outcome and price into that outcome is really my message. So it's value pricing.
Yeah. Well, how do you start that transition? Because I mean, there's a lot of people who still are stuck on that kind of hourly, attorneys, all those people. It's always hourly, 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 or fraction of hours and everything. And how do you start that transition? Because I agree with you. And like I said, having done it myself, like the last thing you want to do is start off your engagement with the discussion over your hourly rate. Because as you said, hourly rates always scare people because they don't understand why your hourly rate might be as big as it is, because they don't understand that you're an independent. You have to pay all this other stuff. You've got all this other stuff going on that maybe they don't. So they don't even understand how the hourly rates arrived at.
That's right. Well, first, I think it's really where you've got to start is with your mindset, and that's what I talk
Hmm.
about in my book. Is that we have these mindsets that hold us back, mindsets of inadequacy and compare syndrome
Right.
and whatnot. And those mindsets live in our heads right next door to our expertise, and those two things are bad next door neighbors, if you want to put it that way. And so the point is that what uh, you've got to get out of those mindset tricks, those voices that are in your
Hmm.
head. And I think the way to do that is to get focused on the client and their needs, wants, hopes, desires, fears, and lean on that. And here's what I think you will find when you do that. Uh, you will find that clients see more value in you than you see yourself.
Mm.
And that's the way to get rid of the mindsets that are in your own head that are holding you back. And I think it starts, John, with that.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that absolutely. Because, like I said, I mean, if you immediately get into the hourly rate and then it's the hours and everything. You're in a very transactional world, but you're also, the focus is off of what you're the outcome, right? The focus
Right.
is on those mechanics up front. But as you said, it's mindset. So you have to have the confidence to be able to go to be able to transition to that and say, okay, no, I'm going to do project value based from now on.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what clients are going to compare your price to something,
Yeah.
because that's how we judge prices. It's always compared to something.
Hmm.
So what you're doing is changing the something, if you will, instead of the comparison of hourly rate, which is way too easy and incorrect. What you're focused on is, okay, what's the value of the transformation? And to come up with some sort of sense of what that is, you've got to have a value conversation with the client and focus on what why do you need this work done today? What's the big
Hmm.
problems that we're solving? If we solve those problems, what will that enable you to do? So you start asking questions and be curious. And what happens is you get to a place where you understand how clients see value, and how clients see value is where the magic is. It's not us. It's where clients see value. And when
Hmm.
you've got that as a metric to compare against, then it's much easier to value price.
No, I totally agree, and it's also focusing on, as you said, it's focusing on the outcomes. It's like, if I engage with you, what is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for, risk reduction? Are you looking for greater efficiency and speed? Are you looking to, upskill your people? What is it? What are the outcomes you're looking at? Those are much. That's a completely different conversation, right? As opposed to, well, what are you going to do for 4 hours, or what are you going to do for, like, you're billing with 10 hours? What are those 10 hours like? Instead, you focus the conversation on, let's see, what is it that you want out of this, and what value do you put on that?
Absolutely. And what you find is if you keep asking questions, you get to a point where some of these answers start to range into what I would call priceless territory.
Hmm.
I mean,
Right.
you know, what when you're let's say, for example, you're talking to a corporation and you're talking to about doing a consulting project for some division,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
you ask a question like, okay, so if we're successful in this project, what's this going to mean for you personally, your career,
Hmm.
and your
Yeah.
opportunities? Well, now we're starting to talk about something. Uh, that means everything to that individual, and so
Mhm.
and what you're showing that person by asking those that you've got a sense of where they see value, and you're someone that's important to them because
Mhm.
you're asking questions that are right in their wheelhouse in terms of what,
Mhm.
as
And I
opposed to
think,
talking.
it's something I yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as opposed to talking to at hours, then we get into our deliverables, the things that we do, and the client is modest. They're more interested in how we're going to get in this trend in this engagement from here to there.
Yeah, and, hang on, just a minute. Yeah, because I just wrote that down, because what you're saying is, when you're on the hourly rate and all that and looking through the thing, you're focused on you, right? It's
Mhm.
focused back
Yeah.
on you. You want it
Yep.
focused you want it focused on the outcomes. And the other thing you mentioned there is something I often mention, and people forget about this, and especially in B2B selling, like, people sometimes forget this, like salespeople, that when you're dealing with a person or a group of people or whatever, and they're making a purchasing decision on behalf of the company they work for. Yes, they are, but they're also making it on their own behalf, and each of them may have, different motivations. But say you're the main person, you implement a solution in your company and it works out, fantastic, you're a hero. If it doesn't work out, what do they always say? What was it? Success has many parents, and, like, failure is an orphan, or something. Isn't that something
That's
like that?
right. That I think
Yeah.
you've got it, John.
Yeah, so you gotta be, so you don't wanna be left holding the baby either. So you need to have that, you need to understand that there's a human emotion element built in on behalf of the decision maker, not just on behalf of the company and those,
Yes.
and I think people often forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're making it human like that, again, you reveal yourself to be someone that's worth trusting, someone that's a
Mhm.
professional of value. You've got more on your mind as it relates to what's going to make my client succeed than I have to get done in this
Yeah,
engagement. That's an
yeah.
entirely different, it's liberating to the client.
Right, and in the former one where you're just doing, like, you know, the deliverables, you're not really dealing with the intangibles that often make the difference at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And it's those intangibles. Thank you for using that word, because that word is why
Mhm.
ourselves. Because unless we have a conversation that gets in what happens to your career this if this works out, well, see, that's an intangible that we won't
Yep,
know unless we ask the question. That is a client perceived value
absolutely.
that that client has, and that's why I say clients value in us than we see ourselves. And when we can lean in worried about those mindsets that hold us back.
So what's one of the first things somebody can do? Say you're a consultant or a fractional executive, and you've been used to doing this hourly and you want to change now. What's the first thing you need to do?
Well, I think what you've got to do is you got to look at your clients and be honest about
Mhm.
which ones you can really transition to value pricing, because it is hard, very hard, particularly if you're not experienced in value pricing. It's hard to get a client
Mhm.
off of hourly into value pricing. Some may go for it because they see how it's good for them, and they see the disadvantages of hourly pricing. Um, that's a rare client in my experience. So really, I think what you've got to do is you've got to start transitioning your practice with new clients
Mm,
and
yeah.
change your own language, and of course change your own pricing and go in that direction. And over time, uh,
Mhm.
you're able to essentially convert to a value oriented pricing structure that practice, but it takes a little time. And if
Yeah.
you're just new and starting out, you've got to get the language down, right? You've got to get used to being curious and asking questions and spending more time listening than talking, and that
Mhm.
takes some practice.
Yeah. And you have to learn how to elegantly push back on the first cost question, right? Or whatever, you
Uh,
know, where they go, so roughly how much is this going to cost? I mean, you've got to be able to elegantly handle that. And you're right. I mean, it's, if you've been working with people on an hourly rate, it's really hard to switch them over. So yeah, but that's a good point, is you have to change the language and your approach. You have to you have to really change how you present yourself. It probably, you won't go back to mindset. It starts off with, you have to decide who you are and
mm.
embrace that, right?
Right. And that's what I mean by generosity.
Mhm.
Generosity in terms of spirit, not in terms of giving everything away,
Yeah.
but a generosity mindset in terms of getting out of your own head and getting into the heads of others and seeing what it is, what they're looking for, what their
Mhm.
dreams and hopes and wants are. And that takes practice. Here's the thing, John, when we go through school, what are we rewarded for? We're rewarded for having the right answer,
Yep.
right? We're never rewarded for asking the right question.
Oh, no, we're not. We're not. That's a good point. That's a good
Yeah,
point. We're not taught. We're not
yeah,
taught questioning.
that we're not, and it takes time to develop a capacity for this. It's a muscle that we have not developed as professionals, because we've always been rewarded for having the answers. But the truth of the matter is, the value to your practice and to ultimately your pricing is in the quality of the questions you ask.
Right. Because there's that the first rule of communication or whatever is that uh, people believe conclusions they come to by themselves over anything you're ever going to tell them. So how do you have somebody come to the right conclusion? You ask the right questions.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and that's one thing spend a chapter thinking about is a value conversation, and I've got a whole cadre of questions in there. Uh, Please don't get it and use those exact questions. You have to adopt them for yourself. But and actually, you can go to my website and pull down this list for free as a resource, and I can give directions on that here in a bit. But use something like that and adapt it to your own uh, practice and your own circumstances to and seek to get comp on the value of the questions, because people will tell you if you're going in the right direction. They'll tell you that's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that. Well, see,
Mhm.
you're in the right, going in the right direction, right?
Yeah, especially if somebody goes, "Yeah, no, I've never thought of that actually." Yeah,
Yeah.
because now you've just come now, as you said, what you've been saying here is now you're adding value because you're adding value in the conversation
Mm,
itself. I ran Huthwaite many years ago, spin selling,
mhm.
Neil Rackham's IP, and Neil always said that if you execute a really good sales call and create value, you should be able to, in theory, invoice for the call. And you should be able to
Yeah.
say, pay me for this because I just gave you value. So when you complete your calls, if you should always ask yourself, did I create enough value there that I could actually, theoretically bill them for that? And if you say yes, you said, then you're a winner. But if you go, not really, then you need to work on. The other thing is the question is one part, is the active listening is the other part that
Oh,
people struggle with nowadays because they're so distracted, by these stupid things, and they're just
yep.
distracted in general, and they don't understand active listening. They don't understand what that actually means.
Well, again, that's another thing we're not trained in, right? I
Mhm.
mean, we're used to being as service providers, and whether it's law school, business school, wherever we've been, we're used to being in debates and roundtables
Right.
and having to jump in and give our opinion. And
Mhm.
what that means is we're not trained to listen. What we're training ourselves to do is think about what we're going to say while we're listening, and that's not active listening.
No.
uh, so the what we need to focus on is what's the naturally most curious question that I can ask. Um, I love the simple tell me more. Just tell me
Mhm.
more. It's
Yeah.
amazing what you can learn when someone gives you an answer and you just say, "Tell me more."
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing, John, too, is oftentimes, I mean, people will ask good questions, right? Maybe they'll get the questioning part,
Mhm.
and then I ask you a really good question, and then you go silent for a couple of moments, and I go, "Oh, silence, that's not good." And then I don't let, and instead of letting you, finish your thought and reply to me, I interrupt, and now it's gone. And
That's
I
right.
see that all the time. I see this fear, especially on virtual stuff. I see this fear of silence.
Oh, yes. So so here's a little tip. In reversing the situation when uh, someone responds to a proposal and says, "Well, it's more than what I was expecting."
Mhm.
Sometimes just let it be silent
Yeah.
and don't respond. Don't immediately seek to defend. Then they will feel uncomfortable with that silence a lot of times, and they will say more about why they feel that way, and
Mhm.
you don't have to inquire further about that. um, so silence is a very powerful tool, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's a powerful tool both in your questioning of someone else,
Yeah.
and then when they're coming back at you under the circumstances like what I described.
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the other part too is, after it was happening pre-pandemic, but after the pandemic and with AI and all that kind of stuff, is I think people are more, they really do want that human element. Yes, they want all the other stuff to get taken care of, but when it comes to, they want that human element, and they want to see that you are bringing something, as we said, something additional to the table that they're not going to be able to get anywhere else.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, we are in an environment right now that people want to get back together,
Hmm.
uh, and even when they cannot because of distance, be in the same room physically, they want to know they have a bond, some sort of bond that just goes beyond just the engagement agreement.
Yeah.
Something that signals to them that they know that the provider they're working for has their back.
Yeah, the trust piece, because I always, and this is the other thing too, is let's face it, whenever you buy something, or purchase something, there's always that, there's the excitement, and then there's the concern, right? You're excited, you start to roll, then maybe it doesn't go perfectly right, or there's a few things somebody complain. Now you're in that where you're suddenly feeling very vulnerable and kind of exposed because your name is associated with. If I don't, if I early in the buying process, if I don't feel that you're going to be there for me and I can trust you and you're going to help me through whatever and we're going to sort it all out, then I'm not going to buy for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you've got to do as a service provider, or really anyone that's in sales, is you've got to make deposits in the
Hmm.
relationship bank, because inevitably something will go wrong.
Yep.
Because we all make mistakes, and sometimes things happen that aren't even your fault, but you're going to have difficulty or turbulence in any relationship, and it's important to have made those
Hmm.
deposits in the relationship bank so there's something to withdraw against, you know, when trouble arises.
Exactly, and don't be that person who goes, "Oh yeah, yeah, John. Oh, you're having an issue. Yeah, let me put you on to the support folks. They'll look after you.
Oh my.
I need to get back to stuff that's
That's
more important." I mean, I mean, how many times has that happened to you in any, even in like in B2C transactions where you're just like, buying a car. I had a good experience once. Bought my first nice car, really thrilled about it. Got this little, found a little rattle you could hear, but it was an intermittent rattle. Called up the sales guy who had been phenomenal during the process, and he's like, "Oh, no, I don't deal with that now. You'll have to deal with the service people. I'll put you through." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll guess I'll never be buying from you again or recommending you." It's something so simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That's a great story, because what it illustrates is it's always the small things,
Yeah.
right? It's never the big things it's those small little pebbles in the shoe that are nagging at the client, that if you don't take care of them, they're going to take the shoe off and get the pebble out, and that pebble may be your
Yeah.
relationship.
Exactly, exactly. Well, in this case, I had to bring it a couple of times, and they kept telling me they were telling me I was an idiot, that there was nothing there, and I was saying, "No, it's intermittent. That's the point." And
Right.
eventually, I think the third time I brought it back, the guy went and drove it for an hour or something, and then discovered, "Oh yeah," and then they found what it was.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah,
So
it really is one of those things where you shouldn't the client shouldn't have to take it to that point,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And yet when you go the extra mile, you stand out. I mean,
Yeah.
in our society, how much do you see that? And how much do you see where you can sincerely say that the company you're dealing with is looking out for your interest above theirs, and
Mm.
that they believe by doing that it will come back to benefit them? How many companies can you say that
I
about?
tell I tell you how often. Uh, it's as often as you remember, because these stand out now. So if you can recall an occasion like that, that's how
Yeah,
often it happens. So not very often, because it'll stick with you. You'll carry that with you going, wow, this company went above and beyond, there, because it doesn't happen. Let's be honest. It doesn't happen in 8 out of 10 times.
that's right. That's right. And the advantage that if you're a service provider
Mhm.
and you're dealing with you're a consultant, let's say you're dealing with a handful of large value engagements, you've got the time to be able to do that. You
Yeah.
know, if you're dealing with a bunch of smaller transactions where you know you're not on the front line with those clients
Mhm.
every day, that's another matter, and that's where you've got another process for delivering great customer service. But if you've got bespoke engagements, custom
Mhm.
engagements where you're the person, you can handle those things directly, and you've got that's the great thing about being in that position.
Yeah. And one last thing, I think when you're in that position, especially nowadays with all the tools and everything coming out and all that, is you're in a great position to be able to, say to your client, "Hey, here, let me recommend you do this. You won't need me for this. Then here, do this and implement this, and it makes you more efficient or whatever." You do stuff like that, I guarantee you'll actually end up getting more business out of those and
Oh, absolutely.
getting referred.
Absolutely, and in fact, you can get referred by people who've never done business
Yeah.
with, right? Who you've sent on to someone else that you thought that could do a better job for them, and they remember you more than they remember the
Yeah.
person
Exactly.
that you sent them to, even though they're happy with what you did.
Mhm.
It's so unusual to
Yes.
get that and to get uh, uh, have someone feel like you know, that person really cared for me in even though it didn't benefit them.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
listen, thanks very much, John. This has been fascinating. All of John's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind our listeners and viewers what you do.
Yeah, so I work with expert service providers, folks that sell their expertise on how to get over those mindsets, that stinking thinking, in order to sell, position, and price their services better, create more joy in their practice.
Mhm.
And I would encourage you to head to my website and check out some of those free resources that John has pointed out, particularly those value conversation questions that we referenced earlier.
Absolutely. And you have the book and then the workbook's coming out, is it?
Yes, that's right. So, a workbook based on the book,
Mhm.
The Generosity Mindset.
And when does that come out?
It should come out probably in May. So,
Okay,
May
so look,
2026.
yes,
Yeah.
so look out for that as well.
Yep.
All right. Well, listen, thanks, John. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.